very good afternoon, all the participants. We have already logged into the webinar awareness on TPOS, November 3rd go live processes, namely the taxpayer request for remission of penalties. So this afternoon, a very good afternoon to you all. Thank you for joining us and welcome to this awareness webinar on TPOS Phase 3 processes that has happened starting from yesterday, today, tomorrow, and the last one to be held on the 27th of October, which is Tuesday next week. I am Will Monelote, your host for this webinar. This is a second day of the awareness webinar on taxpayer request remission of penalties. We kindly request you to please keep your mic and camera muted so that there is minimal interference in the sound and the slides that you will be receiving. The introduction is currently being done by me. My colleague, Ms. Eleanor Mwana, will be doing the presentation and the demonstration, followed by question and answer session. Again, kindly requesting if you could please mute your audio button on the left of the screen and the video button right next to it. For the Q&A session at the end of the presentation, please feel free to send us your questions through Q&A or the chat section during the webinar. As a reminder, this presentation is being recorded for learning purposes and future improvement. The panelists this afternoon are Ms. Eleanor Mwana, Mr. Ges Narain, and Ms. Radhika Mani. I will now let Ms. Eleanor Mwana start the presentation. Over to you, Eleanor.
Bula, I will elaborate and demonstrate on how to request for remission of penalties from the taxpayer portal or Taxpayer Online Service. The objective of the presentation, the overview of remission of penalties, major changes, important message, and the live demo of remission of penalties through TPOS or taxpayer portal. Before I start the demonstration, let's take an overview of remission of penalties. As per Section 48(6) of the Tax Administration Act of 2009, a person liable to pay a penalty may apply in writing to the CEO for remission of the penalty payable, and such application must include the reasons for remission. Section 48(7) of Tax Administration Act has been amended in 2020 and 2021 national budget. The amendment gives the powers to the CEO to remit whole or part of any audit penalty. There are some specific remission powers, such as Section 110(12) of the Income Tax Act. The specific remission powers override the general remission power, and they may provide limited grounds to remit the penalty. It is also the current practice of the Fiji Revenue Customs Service Debt Management Service team that the taxpayer can request for remission of penalty only after the principal tax amount is paid. In order to cater for the business requirement, the remission of penalties application is developed with the business rules agreed in the design document. The different types of penalties in Fiji that are available for the taxpayer to request for remission are as follows. Late lodgement penalty, 20%. Late lodgement penalty, 5%. Late lodgement penalty, $1 per day. Late payment penalty, 25%. Late payment penalty, 5%. Penalty for failure to maintain proper records, 75%. Penalty for failure to maintain proper records, 20%. Penalty for breach of possession agreement, 50%. Advance tax shortfall penalty, 40%. Late payment penalty, 75%. Late payment penalty, 5%. The major changes as is manual request as currently practiced at FRCS. The debt management service receive emails or formal letter from taxpayer regarding of the penalties withdrawal. The online request as is the thin level. If, for example, if you have a debt in fringe benefit tax and also in VAT, it is consolidated, and taxpayer will request for the remission of the penalties. It's a tax type level. If you have, for example, if you have a tax liability in VAT for March 2020, and also a penalty imposed for February 2020, you can only apply for the remission of penalties for Feb 2020. Remission of penalties can be requested via an email or by formal letter from taxpayer, as is a supporting documents attached upon application for remission of penalties. It's a transparency. Important message: FRCS will facilitate manual application till 30th October 2020 and will go live in TPOS from the 3rd November 2020, specifically for VAT, STT, ECAL prescribed service, ECAL plastic bags, telecom levy, and fringe benefit tax. For other tax types, example income tax and PAYE, FRCS will facilitate manual application. In this process, the principal tax must be cleared prior to submitting an application for remission of penalties. Now I will demonstrate on how to lodge a request for remission of penalties from Taxpayers portal. Firstly, you need to access the FRCS portal via public link. Then you can access Taxpayer portal by using the login credentials obtained during the sign-up process. Type the user ID. Type the password. Press the login button. After clicking on the login button, the system will navigate to the taxpayer dashboard, and you need to click on the request type. All the possible types of requests for the TIN holder will be displayed on the screen. Select the waivers option from the list available. Remission of penalties tile will be available for selection once you select waivers. You will click on the tile Remission of Penalties to access the application form. Clicking on Remission of Penalties will open the application form and navigate to the instruction page, where you would be required to read the instructions carefully and tick the checkbox to proceed to the next step. You will redirect to the reference number section for providing the remission amount details. Always choose a no option. For the question is, do you have reference number? You will require to select a text type from the drop-down for which you want to file the remission of penalty in case if you don't have the reference number. After selecting the text type, you will select the period for which you want to file the remission of penalty. After selecting the text type and period, you will click on the Add Reference Number button. An information pop-up will appear to let you know that data for the text type have been loaded. You will click on OK to close the pop-up. You can add multiple reference number for requesting the remission of penalty. You will provide the remission amount for which remission of penalty is requested. Remission amount can be applied in full or partial, as per your need. After providing all the details for the reference number step, you will move to the next step, clicking on Continue to Next Step icon, Remission Reasons, where you will provide the reasons for remission request. You will click on the Add Reason button under the Remission Reason section to provide a reason for requesting the remission of penalty. You will select the reason from the available list of reasons in drop-down. You can choose to explain the reason in detail. Click on Attachment icon to add the mandatory support evidence. Before you proceed further, you have to save your application first. The Save button is located on the right corner of your application. You will click on the plus sign icon and upload the required document. You will upload the mandatory attachment successfully. Close the pop-up now. You can click on the cross icon in red. A pop-up will appear to delete file by clicking on the push button. OK or cancel. You will click on continue to next step, declaration, after providing all the mandatory details in remission region step. A declaration screen will appear whether you will declare the information provided in the application. In the case of a non-individual taxpayer, TIN and designation fields will be available for you to file as shown. You have to enter a valid TIN in the TIN section on the declaration page. The full name will be auto-populated. Select the designation of the person whose TIN is entered on the declaration page from the drop-down. By declaring the information, you will click on the declaration checkbox, and by this, submit button will be enabled. In the case of an individual taxpayer, there won't be any TIN and designation field. Select the declaration checkbox and the submit button will be enabled. On clicking the submit button, an acknowledgement screen will appear with reference number and 2 buttons. The first button depicts to download the acknowledgement button. The second one if you want to apply for another change. Clicking on the download acknowledgement button will download an acknowledgement letter. Once the application is submitted, it will be triggered to an FRCS officer for review and approval. Binaka. Now I hand over to the host, Mr. Philemonian Nailoti.
Okay, thanks a lot, Eleanor, for the presentation. We are going now to the question and answer session. I will just send it over to Mr. August Narain to go through there's a few questions that have come in. Just to go through the questions. I think we have a few questions that are here. So for those of you who have sent in your questions, thank you. So it will also help the other participants in terms of understanding the process going forward. So if you go to the first question, I'll hand it over to Mr. Yogesh Narain to go through from the second question. Okay, well, we are still looking through the questions. Please bear with us. There's some really good questions coming in, so I think they are there. There's some. So
the supporting documents to attach in the event if the penalties are erroneously imposed by FRCS is basically they can put an explanation letter. That will do with reasons.
Just adding to that one, actually you have to understand that the TPOS going forward in terms of the assessment system that FRCS is using. Previously, we used the official assessment system. For example, when the returns come in, FRCS can do adjustments, and then after that, the notice of assessment goes to the taxpayer. In terms of this TPOS going forward, it's on the self-assessment concept. So the return is the assessment. So for example, if you already lodge a return, you go to the, your filing obligation style, and you click there, there's a different status. So if it's filed, you can just click there and you can see your, for example, before we actually go ahead, things related to this, I understand that, the participants should understand about this. This is very, very important. This Taxpayer Online Service assessment system going forward is based on self-assessment. So I understand, the point is noted, and as already explained, the explanation letter will actually suffice. So in case, if it comes in and then the officers, they will need more evidence, then they will inform the applicant. Going on to the next question, Yogesh.
Okay. So the question that we received from the participant is, what is the purpose of reference number box if it is not required? Basically, the form that we have for TPOS, that is for taxpayers, and for our tax officers internal are basically a standard form. So the reference number is not required to be required in that with the when you're doing the revision of penalties through TPOS, because you will not have a reference number. That is for FRCS use only. When we are doing a remission of penalty on behalf of the taxpayer, then we'll be using the reference number. Thank you.
Okay, on the last question, which the applicant, the participant is asking about the declaration procedure. For example, if a tax agent is applying on remission of an individual taxpayer, as we already been saying, with regards to tax agents, the taxpayer should engage the tax agent already on this service. So, for example, when this TPOS process goes live from 3rd of November, if they already engage them to actually load this and develop, then actually that process will be the same process, like what we have shown.
The declaration procedure will be the tax agent would be lodging the remission of penalty on behalf of the taxpayer. So it is the tax agent's responsibility to declare, and they will put their own TIN number. And then in the designation part, the drop down, there is a tax agent selection that they can select. So with that, we will be able to know that the tax agent has lodged the remission of penalty.
So thank you, Mr. Yogesh Narayan, for clarifying that. I hope that we have actually answered the question. And please, for the benefit of all the participants this afternoon, the webinar video and the question and answers, please will be available at least 2 weeks from today. And then we will inform the participants when it's posted on our website, www.frcs.org.fg. You go to our services, and then Taxpayer Online Services, then webinar sessions. Inside there is the video, and down below are the question and answers. So you can also, for the benefit of those participants that do not know, that are tuning in this afternoon, you can also see all the webinar sessions that we have, the videos, and also the question and answers if you want to educate you more on this. And with those few words, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for your participation this afternoon. We have noted all your questions and input, and the team will endeavor to address this with you. We may be contacting you individually on some of the issues you have brought up. Please join us tomorrow for the 3rd day of the November 3rd go live TPOS processes. Tomorrow we will be covering tax compliance certificate, and the morning session will start at 11 a.m. You can use the same login link and the password that you use for today's session. Before we end, we would like to ask all the participants today to please spare a few minutes and go to the SurveyMonkey link shown on the screen and fill in the feedback survey. Your feedback is important and will help us improve. I'll leave the screen on for a few minutes so that you can note down or screenshot the link before we end the meeting. With these few words, thank you all once again. Stay safe and goodbye.